Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us for tonight's concert. As part of our celebration for America's 250th anniversary, we've put together an all-American program featuring music that spans generations of American composers. Tonight's program showcases several influential composers who helped shape the American musical voice. The first one is one that many of you will probably recognize almost immediately. It's one of the most iconic American works ever written, Fanfare for the Common Man by Aaron Copland. Many versions of this piece exist, as jazz and rock bands have performed it, and a lot of TV shows and film scores have also used it repeatedly, making it arguably Copland's most popular work. The original piece was commissioned in 1942 by conductor Eugene Guzens for the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra during the peak of World War II. He invited several American composers to write concert openers of patriotically titled fanfares to honor the war effort. While many composers wrote tributes for soldiers or military heroes, Copland instead chose to title his Fanfare for the Common Man, honoring ordinary people's strength. The music itself is remarkably spare. It begins with an ominous timpani and bass drum statement, followed by noble, majestic brass chords, very monumental and full of dignity. Copland became famous for creating what many listeners think of as the American sound. Open intervals, spacious harmonies, simple yet noble, which all evokes a feeling of wide landscapes. Over the years, this piece has grown far beyond its wartime origin into a symbol of collective strength and hope. This fanfare was later reused by Copland himself to start the finale of his Third Symphony from 1946, elevating it into a larger national statement. From there, we move into something completely different and interestingly philosophical. Charles Ives was one of the great musical innovators of the early 20th century. In many ways, he was decades ahead of his time. The Unanswered Question is one of his most fascinating works, composed in 1908 and revised in 1934. But like many of Ives' works, it was not widely known until much later in his life. It was first performed in 1946. This piece explores the meaning of life and existence through sound. And Ives does this by first dividing the orchestra into three separate musical worlds. The string play extremely slow, tonal, quiet chords that barely seem to move. And they provide the serene, eternal, and unchanging background that Ives described as the silence of the Druids. Then a solo trumpet plays a 5-note motive 7 times throughout the piece, which asks what Ives called the eternal question of existence. 4 flutes that represent humanity then attempt to answer the question, but each time the answer becomes more and more agitated, dissonant, and chaotic as they grow desperate in the search for the answer. Eventually, they give up entirely. The trumpet asks the question quietly one last time, and the piece ends unresolved. Next, we go into one of the most beloved American works ever written, George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. The piece is commissioned by bandleader Paul Whiteman, who wanted Gershwin to write a large-scale jazz-influenced concert work for an all-jazz program titled An Experiment in Modern Music. Legend has it that Gershwin forgot about the commission until his brother spotted a newspaper advertisement announcing the premiere of a new Gershwin work. Realizing he had only about 5 weeks before the concert left to write this piece, Gershwin rushed to compose Rhapsody in Blue, sketching much of the piece after being inspired during a train journey to Boston. The piece was premiered in 1924 with Whiteman's jazz band and Gershwin himself at the piano. It was super successful, audiences absolutely loved it, and as a result, it helped redefine what American concert music could sound like and brought jazz into the concert hall. The symphonic version with piano solo we will hear at this concert was later orchestrated by Whiteman's arranger, Ferdy Grofé, in 1942, who was also a member of the band that premiered the piece. It is a rhapsody in the sense that it unfolds as one musical continuous flow from one theme and idea to another. You'll hear jazz rhythms, blues harmonies, dance music influences, and virtuosic improvisatory piano writing all blended together. We're very excited to welcome Andrew von Oeyen and share this work with all of you. Following that, we will hear another piece by an American composer, written under the Fanfare Project and commissioned by the Houston Symphony. Joan Tower's Fanfare for the Uncommon Woman is a tribute to adventurous and courageous women who take risks. It is inspired by Copland's Fanfare for the Common Man, and we can hear similarities in the brass and percussion instrumentation, but Tower's musical language is more rhythmic, energetic, and constantly in motion compared to Copland's broad and monumental fanfare built around long, stately gestures. The percussion section, with added glockenspiel, marimba, chimes, and drums, especially plays a huge role in driving the music forward with explosive bursts of energy. Then we end the program with one of Copland's best-known masterpieces, Appalachian Spring. The piece was originally written as a ballet for American dancer and choreographer Martha Graham in 1944. It was originally a work for 13 instruments for a performance in a small theater at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. It was composed during Copland's Americana period, where he became determined to create accessible music that would resonate to Americans. The premiere was an immediate success and became widely popular. That a year later, Copland arranged an orchestral suite that highlights some of the key moments of the ballet in 8 continuous sections. The original ballet went on to win a Pulitzer Prize in 1945. Interestingly, the title Appalachian Spring was chosen after the music had already been composed. Martha Graham borrowed it from a phrase in the poem by Hart Crane, and although many listeners associate the title with mountain landscapes and springtime scenery, the ballet itself is really about a young pioneer couple beginning a new life together in rural Pennsylvania. The music reflects this in its sincerity, luminous, and hopeful tone. One of the most famous moments that you will most definitely recognize comes later in the piece when Copland introduces the shaker tune, Simple Gifts. He first introduces the simple theme in the pure sound of the clarinets, then gradually transforms it through a series of variations that grows broader and brighter. Eventually, the full orchestra takes up the tune in a radiant and triumphant statement before the music gently settles back down again into the same calm and spacious atmosphere from which the ballet began, bringing the work to a feeling of peaceful fulfillment. Throughout the piece, you'll again hear the qualities that made Copland's music so closely associated with the American sound, openly transparent and optimistic. In some of the variations, the ballet roots of this music become especially clear through country fiddle-like rhythms, fun, lively syncopations, shifting accents, and the constant frequent changes of meter. But Appalachian Spring is about more than American identity. It's about building a life, creating a loving community, and looking toward the future together with hope. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy the concert.